We promised you unfinished business, and here it is. Tony, what are our competitors driving?
Well, you called it Toyota Camry's 301 horsepower XSE. Directly from the factory to the racetrack, had 0 miles until these drivers got in them.
Cars are identical, but the approach can be different. You can shut the traction control off. You can stage these things different. We'll find out how our legends attack first round as we get right to it. Our first matchup is one of the biggest ones that we could ever possibly imagine. Big Daddy Don Garlits and Shirley Muldowney. The last time, or the most monumental time they met in a final round, was here in 1982. Shirley Muldowney had won the race in 1981, comes back and tries to double up. Don Garlits had been running great all race, but he made one fatal bad decision before the final round, and that was not completely pulling his engine down, and Shirley made him pay for it. To this day, Don Garlits laments the fact that he didn't repair the intake manifold gasket that allowed Shirley Muldowney to do this to him in a painful final round loss. It was an iconic moment then, and we move now, transition right back into the present. In 2019, we see Big Daddy Don Garlits closest to us. We see Shirley Muldowney across the racetrack, and Tony, it's a pick-em.
Yeah, it really is by far the biggest rivalry that this sport has ever seen. And Brian, let's take a look to see which one gets off of this very crucial, that starting line reaction time.
So Garlits is actually deep stage this Camry. Shirley's in there, the light goes green, and off they go.
Oh, big jump for Garlits. That could be trouble for Shirley.
It could be trouble for Shirley, but by the time they've gotten past the 60-foot mark, she's not only made up the time, she's begun to actively drive away. It's a repeat of 1982.
Well, Brian, you talked about that traction control button these cars are equipped with, and there's a good chance, looking at the early numbers, especially the 60-foot time, that Don Garlits may not have activated that traction control.
Place went nuts. Oh, that was great. So now we transition to our Pro Stock competitors. Terry Vance, the Pro Stock motorcycle and Top Fuel motorcycle racer, and Warren Johnson, the professor, sporting those iconic black, silver, and red striped colors in the Vance and Hine colors. Johnson is the active leader, or rather the leader among race winners at Gainesville. Here is his first, driving that, just one of, my opinion, one of his coolest cars ever, beating Frank Iaconio in the final round. Pick up the first of 9 victories at this race. He remains the winningest man in Gainesville Gator Nationals history. 760s in Pro Stock. That's not getting anywhere near the field these days, but back then it was rocket-like acceleration. Terry Vance, of course, a guy who has had a huge amount of influence, 26 race wins between Pro Stock Bike and Top Fuel.
Well, Warren Johnson, pretty aggressive staging, and it paid off. You can see him start to slip the tire, but again, Terry Vance having some problems way late on the starting line.
Yeah, way late in the starting line and way late to the finish line, too. It looks like Vance has actively clicked his machine off as Warren Johnson, 14.96.5 at 97.
This machine might have too many wheels for Terry Vance. I've watched both of these when I was growing up, and what an iconic matchup.
Kenny Bernstein and Joe Amato, two guys that were just absolutely dominant in the world of Top Fuel drag racing, and certainly with Kenny, Top Fuel and Nitro Funny Car. 6 world championships for Kenny, 5 world championships for Joe Amato. And Tony, when you were a kid in the 80s, watching this sport, you wanted to be either Kenny Bernstein or Joe Amato.
Yeah, 2 of the biggest superstars of the sport. This is on board with Kenny Bernstein. This may be the 300-mile-an-hour run.
It is, man. It is one of the greatest moments in NHRA history. Dale Armstrong undoubtedly looking down, smiling on the anniversary of that moment as he is embracing his crew. So here it is today, Kenny Bernstein inching his Camry in, the king of speed colors, of course, as he became known after that 300-mile-an-hour run. And Joe Amato up on the wheel. There he goes.
So many times these two, Brian, battled it out on the racetrack. And here again, Kenny Bernstein was one of the drivers known for his lightning reflexes, but second off the line, Joe Amato on his game.
And Amato is going to have no trouble here. They raced each other in 9 final rounds over the course of their career. Amato won 5, and now he gets to notch another first-round victory over Kenny Bernstein as he will advance on a round 2, and Bernstein will be forced to the sidelines of unfinished business. Now it is Don the Snake Prudhomme and Ed the Ace McCullough coming up. The Ace wearing those Revolution colors, of course, that he made so famous in the 70s, and Prudhomme, one of the most dominant funny cars of all time, a throwback wrap on his Camry to the Army car.
Yeah, and both of these are really a couple of the most recognizable cars from those eras, and in my opinion, 2 of the best-looking cars. And you take a look at Ed the Ace McCullough going up to stage, one of his biggest rivals of all time in the other lane. 2
of the most snarling, competitive men you've ever met in the sport of drag racing. The competitive spirit still burns within both of them, and Ed McCullough just took the fight to the snake on the starting line.
But still, this is one of the closest races that we've seen. A little bit of smoke coming out of that McCullough car.
Man, off the tailpipes, the condensation blowing, and Ed McCullough goes to the next round. 15-50 with a 2 at 94 miles an hour, retiring Don Prudhomme in the first round, something that McCullough never did in a final round against the snake. So at the top end of the racetrack, Amanda Busick is with Don Garlitz and Shirley Muldowney.
Well, the first round one win of unfinished business goes to Shirley Muldowney. And Shirley, it's been over 15 years since you've competed. Tell the fans what it was like to see that win light again.
I was happy. I'm happy right now. You know, a little bit of luck, a little bit of help from Stan Holdley. Gave me some pointers on the starting line. I wasn't sure about ours, but Antron on the airplane yesterday, he gave me some tips. I was begging for some help. I haven't driven a street car in years on the starting line, and it doesn't seem like 15 years since I dropped the light. Wow. Wow.
Well, Shirley will advance to the semis. And, Don, you did have her on the reaction time. You're in your Toyota Camry. You're in front of a hometown crowd here in Gainesville. What's that experience like for you?
Well, you always try to do good in front of your fans, you know. And of course, a lot of families here, too. It's a great track, and I love it.
So here we go. The semifinal round, which will be contested tomorrow, will pit Ed the Ace McCullough against Joe Amato, two people that have never raced each other, and then Shirley Muldowney and Warren Johnson, four hard-nosed competitors, Tony.
Well, and of all of those cars, it was Warren Johnson that had the quickest elapsed time. Ed McCullough, the second quick, but may need a new set of rings.
I'm thinking WJ might have snuck under the hood of that thing last night. It was flying. Let's go back down to the top end and catch up with another round winner.
Ed, you have famously said that your loss at the 1973 U.S. Nationals was the worst of your career. You get the round one win over the snake. Does that make up for it?
I don't know that it'll make up for it, but it was big. I mean, nowadays, nobody wanted to go down first round today.
On the other side, and we're going to kick off the semifinal round of unfinished business right now. And we weren't kidding. Here is Shirley Muldowney as Tony Pedregon. Look at Ron Tolmer sticking his face in there. Of course, Shirley and Ron spent a long part of their lives racing and as husband and wife. So Ron is shaking hands with Shirley. Warren Johnson on the other side of the racetrack. Tension's high.
Of all the surprises this weekend, that I did not expect.
That was a curveball nobody saw coming.
You know, surely she beat Big Daddy Don Garlitz in the first round, but Warren Johnson coming into this race, not just as a favorite in this heat, but a favorite to get to the final and win this event.
Johnson does have low ET. Now, these are Toyota Camry XSEs. We told you about that. They're 301 horsepower, V6, front-wheel drive. And there is some strategy here, because if you launch this car the wrong way, you're going to spin the tires and give up a lapse time. Now, Shirley said she got some tips from Antron Brown, who is, of course, a Toyota driver who has done, testing and development work on these cars with the company, so he knows stuff. But, man, the professor's looking pretty solid. Okay, WJ and Shirley sitting in pre-stage. Now we're going to probably have a burn down. WJ's thinking about Scott Jeffrey on in Houston back in the day, trying to hang him out to dry. Shirley's going to be second to stage here.
WJ's in. He's been in waiting.
Reaction time is going to very slightly favor Warren Johnson, so they're within about 100th leaving the starting line. And we look at him going down the racetrack.
Oh, he's pulling away from Shirley.
And Warren Johnson, by at least a car length at 1,000 feet and by a couple at the finish line stripe, is heading to the final round. So WJ, with the approval of fellow Pro Stock alum Larry Morgan and his wife Arlene Johnson at the starting line, will be going to the final round, and there is one pair left to run here in the semis, and this is a good one. Joe Amato and Ed the Ace McCullough as Warren Johnson signals. Put the signal on. That is a mature Warren Johnson.
He doesn't want to get a ticket out there, does he?
So here is Joe Amato wearing the familiar blue and white colors with a red pinstripe on his Toyota Camry, and across the racetrack, the Revolution car of Ed the Ace McCullough. 52 wins in Top Fuel for Joe Amato as the Ace puts up another segment.
That's a good strategy right there. You don't want the air conditioner on. You don't want the stereo on. It may have a nice sound to one of these Camrys, but Ed McCullough, you also want to minimize some of the drag, and he's doing that by rolling those windows up.
These were zero mileage cars, so these were literally off the factory floor, wrapped and brought here to Gainesville Raceway. Starting line advantage goes to Ed the Ace McCullough by a very slim margin, but by the time they get to 330 feet, the Ace is just driving away from Joe Amato. And if Joe has a tee time later on this afternoon, he's going to be able to get there, because Ed the Ace McCullough is going to the final round against the Professor. And Ed McCullough, $14.99. That's only the second one of these we've seen break into the sub 15-second range, and it was the Professor's car was the only other one to do it. And at the top end of the racetrack is Warren Johnson with a main of Busey.
Warren, the quickest run of the event so far in unfinished business in your Toyota Camry. How are you running so fast?
Well, first and foremost, congratulations for Toyota to supply these cars. I'm actually having fun out here. We had to take and milk everything out of a car that we could in the Pro Stock. Top fuel funny car, they just put a bigger blower or more fuel or whatnot, you know, and they stab it and that's it. We have to drive these cars searching for traction, this, that, whatnot. We have to extract ET out of the car, not just the motor.
Well, what are you doing?
Just driving it.
Nice work.
And so here's what it looks like. The final round matchup of NHRA's unfinished business will pit Warren the Professor Johnson against Ed the Ace McCullough in a pair of equally matched Toyotas. How do we know they're equally matched? Tony, the NHRA Tech Department has now begun pouring over Warren Johnson's car, measuring the air inlet, the ride height. We got our tech guys down there making sure everything's on the up and up and that WJ hasn't snuck into the shop. This is NHRA approved, and we know you are too. We'll be back with more from the Gator Nationals right after this. Ed the Ace McCullough, the equally prepared cars, the Camrys, 300 horsepower engine, XSE model. We've seen both of these cars dip their toes into the 14-second zone, Tony, maybe with Warren's a little bit deeper than the Aces.
Well, and the biggest problem for Ed the Ace McCullough, he's coming into this race with a 4/10 disadvantage to the Professor.
And the Professor is going to have to make it up because Ace left on him. You saw the nose of his Camry rise first. As Warren Johnson trying to make a move on him here at the 330-foot mark. You see the nose is rising and falling as the transmission shift, but it is going to be Warren Johnson powering his way to the finish line and winning the unfinished business competition. The Ace actually predicted this outcome before we even got going, and the Ace was just not quick enough to catch him.
Yeah, another 14-second run for Warren Johnson. Whatever he did to this car, well, it gave him an advantage, really, in almost every round. Like you said, it was Ed the Ace McCullough getting a starting line advantage, but very calm, very cool, very collected for WJ. These cars come into this race with 0 miles. Let's see, 4 times a quarter mile. They'll have a little over a mile when they're done.
WJ's with Amanda at the top end.
Well, the trophy has gone in the hands of Warren Johnson. And Warren, if you add this with your Wallies, this is your 10th win at the Gator Nationals. Where will this one rank?
Well, you know, I'd probably have to put that right up on top there because it'll probably be the last one I'll have here.
Well, now that the race is over, you just flat out outran everyone. What did you do to this car, Warren?
I didn't do anything except get in and drive it. Toyota gave me a good racehorse.
And here's